Well, we're out in the shop today, and I've been doing a little bit of bow fishing this spring, summer, and I have found that I need a good gaff. I just like the idea of making stuff myself, so I'm going to make a gaff. I got this mild steel. I'm going to guess that's probably 1/4 inch diameter. So I think I'm just going to take Sawzall down there and hack a piece of that bamboo for a handle. Hack it off. This is my phone laying there on the workbench, and somebody has laid one out on a gridded paper here so we can get some real good dimensions. So this is just a mild steel rod, and I'm going to go ahead. The first thing I'm going to do before we start bending it, the first thing I'm going to do is put that point on it, because it's going to be a whole lot easier to sharpen the point now when it's a straight rod than it will be after the thing is bent up. That's a pretty long, skinny point, but we're going to go with it. So we know we need a 2-inch diameter bend. Okay, so here's the fixture. I found a piece of, this was a piece of fire hose. I cut the end off of it. I think that was old fire hose, some kind of weird, really thick rubber hose. You can see how I've got the rod jigged up here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to release the vice grips. I'm going to heat the rod up, then clamp it down and then bend it around, and we want a full 180 degree bend here. Just pulling the tip down a little bit because I don't want to bend it. Pulling back on it because I want it to stay tight up against that pipe. And I think I'm going to massage it with a hammer a little bit here toward the end. So it looks like this tip bends out just a little bit. See what I mean? The tip looks like it goes away just a little bit, and then of course this bend right here, which is about level with the tip, goes the other way. So we'll see if we can't do that next. Just a little bit. Can you see it? And then about here, we're going to make the thing go the other way. Just a little bit. Alright, it's cooled down. I did a little measuring on it, and this ends up being about 2 5/8 across, where I wanted it to start about, I wanted it to be about 2 inches across. It's worked out to 2 5/8, so I'm going to make this one a little bit larger gaff, and I'm going to go ahead and make another one. Over the anvil before we lose all our heat. I hope you guys can see what I'm doing. So it looks like, that looks like about a 1/2 inch of bend away from the hook. So we want to make sure we bend it that way. So I'm going to heat this up here. I'm going to bend that tip over, and it looks like it's a 90 degree bend. that one's done. I'm going to go ahead and hit it with, I'm going to let it cool down so I can handle it. And then I'm going to hit it with the wire wheel. All right, while we're waiting on that other one to cool off, I went ahead and heated up and then beat a point on this tip, worked it out on the bench grinder. We're going to bend this one, you know, like I say, a little bit smaller diameter, and I can't find anything round that's quite the diameter I want, but if I go across the angles on this nut, this is just about 1.5 inch. So I've never bent on a hexagon like this before. I would imagine that I'll probably get a pretty circular bend. What the heck, we're going to give it a shot. Oops. Made a nice sweeping bend on the most part, but right there where I had it clamped and started working it around, you know, it's not a sweeping bend. I think it'll probably work though. I'm gonna put those same bends on the tip, bend the tip out a little bit, bend this back the other way, and I'll catch up with you guys. Alright, so I got it all wired, wheeled, and I mean, it looks good. It's nice and straight. Everything looks good. Before I heat treat it, I'm going to go ahead and file this tip a little bit just to try to put, you know, as good a tip on it as I can before it gets harder. And it may not get that much harder. Again, I don't know the science behind all this stuff, but I'm going to try to make it a little bit harder without making it too brittle. So we got both our hooks sort of ready to heat. You could probably use them like this. I mean, honestly, they're probably good enough in this condition. I'm going to try to heat them up though. So the process here is going to be heat them up really hot and then shock them in water and then heat them back up to a straw color. You're looking for like a sort of a yellowish, brownish color, and then let them cool down as slowly as possible. Ideally, you'd want like a tub of sand or something, or I mean, ideally, you'd want to do this in a kiln or some sort of regulated furnace. I don't have that handy. So I'm going to heat them up. Just the, I won't heat up this long shank part because that really shouldn't have changed much. But I don't want this to be brittle, and I definitely want the tip to be hard and not brittle. So I'm going to try to heat treat this end and pretty much the whole hook, mostly the tip. Alright, I got them both all wired, wheeled back up to where you can see sort of the natural metal color. And now I'm going to go ahead and just try to lightly heat them and then just set them off to the side. Oh well, at least we can say we tried, right? Let them cool down. We'll work on that handle now. Alright, well, the hooks are done. They've cooled down enough to handle, and you can see the tips are shiny. I took a file and then some sandpaper to the tips, and I got really nice sharp points on each of them. I don't know how tempered these things are. I mean, I wouldn't swear to how, you know, good the steel is and everything, but you know, I did everything I know to do. Whether that's going to be enough, I don't know. But as long as I don't smash them into nothing real hard, you know, hit them on the concrete, they shouldn't be brittle, but that'd be my only fear, that they're a little brittle. But I think they'll be all right. For what I'm doing with them, you know, they're plenty sharp, and I can always sharpen them up. So I think the hooks are going to work out real well. So I'm going to turn my attention now to this piece of bamboo that we cut. And like I said earlier in the video, I think I mentioned it earlier, there's a lot of videos on YouTube, guys, that are talking about a certain kind of bamboo that they make gaffs out of, and I forget exactly what the name is that I'd heard used. But I know one guy talked about, it's not like your typical bamboo with them hard bumps every so often. Well, this has those hard bumps, of course. So I'm going to take this piece of wood to the bench grinder again and see if I can knock down these bumps, and maybe then take some sandpaper to them, and we'll just see sort of how that works out. I'll get you guys set up here and follow along. Alright, so that's what it looks like. That's what it looked like to begin with. It looked just like that one because it had a chute coming off the side. And I heard it thunder. I thought, man, I better go get me another piece of bamboo because that one piece ain't quite long enough. I pull out here. I don't know if you can see it or not. We started getting hail. We didn't get much of it, but I mean, there's nuggets there that are big as you get out of the ice maker. Well, I got it all sort of ground down and used that wire wheel to sort of finish it up. Yeah, it's fairly smooth. Now this stuff, when it grows a lot of it has this channel in it. And I thought, man, how am I going to make that work? It's going to be kind of janky looking. And then I realized, when I put this hook on there, it's just going to lay. The hook lays against the wood, so the hook could actually sit down in that channel, and that'll sort of set it in a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and find a drill bit that's about that size. I don't want this to act like a nail because I don't want to take any chances of splitting this out. So I'm going to find a drill bit that's sort of generously sized that I want this to just sit down in the hole. I don't want to have to drive that in the hole. I watched one video where the guy said to drill, when you're making your gaff, to drill into the knot. To set this thing in the knot rather than like just setting it up here somewhere. I don't know, maybe that makes some sense. There's definitely more meat right there, but then again, I guess you take the chance of separating that joint. I don't know how much pressure it would take to do that. Maybe that's sort of impossible, but I'm going to go ahead and drill it there. It seems like that makes sense to me, so we'll try not to have to drill all the way through if I can help it. And that looks like it sits down in there pretty good. So now I want to cut the thing to the finished length, and we're going to cut it to finished length at right there where that bend is. So I'll probably cut it just about right there where my fingernail's at. So the first thing I did, I've got some mason twine. Again, this is just, you can see I even got it on a janky little spool that I used to spool it with my drill. So this has been used for, I don't know, 3 or 4 different things. I know I set my aerators in my pond using this stuff, so it's used, but it ought to work just fine. I cut off a piece and made a loop out of it, and we're going to need this to sort of finish the wrap. But the idea is going to be to lay this hook on here like so, and essentially wrap that mason twine, and then we'll finish it with some epoxy. And I'm just going to get started here and show you guys sort of what this is going to look like. Woo! Okay, well the temper must be good on that hook because it didn't shatter when it hit the concrete. Okay, well I'm glad for that. I am really putting a lot of tension on this twine. Alright, I think that's going to be it. If I put any more wraps on it, I'll never be able to pull it through. So, I'm going to cut it to length here. Can you guys see what we're doing? Yeah, I think you can. I'm going to cut it to length long enough where it'll slip in that hole. I'm keeping tension on the thing to keep the wraps from pulling back out. Do I want to melt this? I don't think I want to melt that. I don't want to take the chance of making that end any larger. Okay, so then we're going to stick that in there. And I'm going to wrap this bamboo around here, and I'm going to give it all in one jerk without impaling myself on the gaff. Because I just know it's going to be, once I get that in, get that tag end inside there, it's going to be really tight. So I'm going to jerk it all at once and see what happens. Let's make sure the vise is reasonably tight. Oh, yep, that didn't work. Really, really tight. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to cut it to length, and I'm going to heat it and sort of melt it so that it won't come out so easy. You can see I left just a fuzz on there. I'm going to melt that fuzz. Melt it right in there so that it won't want to come loose. So it shouldn't pull out. Oh boy. Well, I like that. Okay, good, good, good. Because we're using what we've got on hand, what we've got on hand for epoxy is, got a selection of JB Weld. Got JB Quick, regular JB Weld, and JB Weld plastic bonder. I'm probably just going to go ahead and, oh heck, this JB Quick, I don't trust it to set up as hard as the other stuff, so for this project, we'll probably just use this JB Quick. Alright, well I went ahead and wrapped up this other one too before I mix up that JB Weld. I might as well have them both ready to go. And I got to thinking, you know, it'd be nice if I could seal that end. And I remembered I got a bunch of sheet metal plugs, and that'll make that a nice clean look. Kind of looks janky a little bit right now, but I think the finished product should look pretty good. And I'm just dipping my fingers in that pot of water that I use for, I use it to parts wash, I use it to cool stuff down, sort of all-purpose pot of water there. Well, I originally wasn't planning on painting them, but I got some paint sitting there, half a can of this gray. It's the same color as the boat, so they are just kind of overly ugly this way. So I'm going to paint them. All right, well, here we are a few days later, and again, I had the gray spray paint laying there on the shelf, so I masked off just the tip. I didn't see no sense in dulling the point with some paint. So far, I've had everything on hand. Now, I bought this and then I looked into it further. This may or may not have adhesive on it. This was from Walmart. This was like, I want to say this was $5, and it's got 3 of these little things in it. They got a little display thing. It's real soft rubber. Seems kind of thin, but after I looked into it, I bought this and then I started looking into it more. This is called overwrap or over grip. This is not the handle grip material. This is a secondary over grip material. So this is thinner and this may or may not have adhesive on it. The grip material is like $8 for a single one, where this is like $5 for 3 of them. So we're going to try it anyhow. We're going to see what it's like. Now this little thing it's a retainer for, you know, for keeping this little thing in a bundle, but it also is used to wrap at the very top of the wrap. You use this to finish it off. So don't just throw that away. So this is the only adhesive on there, just that one little bitty tab. So we're going to go ahead and peel that off. We're going to start it on here, out at the very end. I'm going to put a little pressure on it as I'm unwrapping. And there we go. Get that first wrap on, and then just start overlapping and peel this. You can probably about peel that off all the way if you wanted to. You're only supposed to overlap this stuff like 1/8 of an inch, something like that. Okay, now I do want this to be, I don't want it to stop like that. I do want it to be a straight flush stop. So we're going to back it off to about here, and we're going to cut it so that it makes it a sort of a straight line. We're going to back it off to here, and we'll cut it perpendicular to the perpendicular to the shaft. We should be good. Circular there. We'll start this right here. And I'm going to use all this up. It ain't going to be perfect, but that way I get a good coverage there. Alright, well, we'll see how that holds up. I'm hoping that it doesn't, you know, sort of twist off of there, but it don't look bad. It's sort of unique looking. I mean, it looks like a tennis racket. Well, you can see I went ahead and made sort of a protector for the tip there, and this is of course fuel line. It's what I had on hand again. The round stock that we made the hook out of is 1/4 inch diameter, so the 1/4 inch fuel line I had on the shelf. This is a piece of line about 8 inches long, and you can see that I cut up from the end just a little bit, maybe an inch or so. I cut the line, but I didn't cut it all the way through. Maybe about halfway through. Slid that over the hook, and then the other end, you just set in there like that. And that'll keep you from accidentally stabbing yourself, you know. So they turned out really well, I think. Of course, I made one for each, you know, I made a protector for each gaff. I think these things turned out really good overall. The more I mess with this grip tape, the more I'm liking it. It's advertised as helping you keep your grip when your hands are, you know, sweaty or whatever for tennis rackets. My thinking is, you know, out on the boat, everything's subject to getting wet, and you get a few fish in the boat and stuff starts getting slimy pretty quick. So I'm thinking that this hopefully will help me keep good grip, you know, even when you get some slime on them. So that's my hope with that. The only thing that I can think really might bite me with this, and I think we talked about it earlier, is this being green bamboo might sort of shrink up and that hook get loose on there. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But if it does, I mean, worst case scenario, I cut the hooks off, I save the hooks, and I just get a new, you know, broomstick or dowel rod or something. So, you know, time will tell. We'll have to see that. I was thinking about how much I'd had in these things. So I bought the grip tape. If I'd have had to buy, you know, spray paint, if I'd have had to buy a dowel rod for the handle or you know, broomstick or something, if I'd have had to buy the round stock to make the hook, if I'd have had to buy the JB Weld and the Mason twine, and, you know, even figuring a couple of bucks for oxygen and acetylene, I think I'm into these things for about $32, $34 for the pair of them. So I think that's a bargain, and I can say that I made them. You know, there ain't many guys out there that are going to be able to say that, you know, I made that hook. I made it from scratch. I made it from a piece of round stock and a piece of bamboo that I cut out of the side yard. So they turned out great. With all that in mind, I hope this video is going to help you guys with maybe some good ideas, maybe some what not to do sort of thing. So if you like this video, click that thumbs up button. If you think this was a silly idea and I did some really stupid things here, click that dislike button. You know, in either case, if you liked it or didn't like it, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about the video. If you guys want to see more videos like this, click the subscribe button. Until the next time, guys, keep on tinkering.